something ancient is breaking apart, and something even older is awakening beneath it. For centuries, religion has told humanity what to believe, who we are, what's right, what's forbidden, and who we must fear. It offered comfort, yes, but at a cost. Because to belong, you had to surrender the one thing most sacred, your ability to question. But lately, something's shifting. People are beginning to feel what they were once told to believe. Not through temples or sermons, but through experience, silence, and self-awareness. It's not loud, it's not organized, it's a quiet revolution of consciousness, spreading through ordinary lives. From those who left their churches behind, to those still sitting in the pews, wondering why the old words suddenly feel empty. This isn't a war between believers and atheists. It's not faith versus science. It's a deeper conflict between control and awakening. Because once you understand the true difference between religion and spirituality, you realize they were never meant to serve the same master. And you'll never see either the same way again. The inheritance of belief. We're all born into a story. Before you can even think for yourself, that story begins to shape you, telling you who you are, what's real, and what's dangerous to even question. Maybe it was whispered to you in a church pew while you stared at stained glass and candles. Maybe it was printed on thin pages that were called holy. Or maybe it wasn't spoken at all, just absorbed through your parents' fear, your community's rules, and the silence around forbidden topics. Either way, before you could walk, the story already had you walking in its direction. Here's the strange part. You didn't choose your religion. It chose you. Your birthplace, your family, your language. These decided your God before you ever said your first prayer. If you had been born somewhere else, you'd probably worship someone else. Think about that. Billions of people absolutely certain that their version of truth is the right one, all because of an accident of birth. And yet, these inherited beliefs feel unshakable. They're woven into your identity so deeply that questioning them feels like betrayal. You don't just fear being wrong, you fear being alone. So you obey. You repeat the words, attend the rituals, and call it faith. But deep down, you can feel it, can't you? The quiet weight of something borrowed. Because when your truth is handed to you before you've earned it, it isn't truth, it's programming. And that's where the prison begins. A prison built not of walls, but of unquestioned stories. Most people spend their entire lives inside that cage, mistaking its comfort for meaning. But a few, just a few, begin to sense the bars. And once you see them, you can never unsee them. The silent revolt. At some point, that cage you grew up in starts to shake. Not because someone forces it open, but because something deep inside you whispers, "This can't be all there is." It doesn't come as anger, at least not at first. It comes as confusion, a quiet unease, when you notice the cracks in what you were taught to call truth. You see preachers who speak of humility while sitting on thrones of gold. You hear words of love, followed by warnings of eternal fire. You're told to be kind, but only to those who believe what you do. The contradiction gnaws at you, and once you see it, you can't look away. But here's the catch. Most people silence that whisper. They bury it under guilt, prayer, or distraction. Because asking the wrong question doesn't just make you a skeptic, it makes you a threat. You start to feel the tension building inside. The world wants obedience, but your soul wants truth. And the two cannot coexist for long. So you begin to question, not out of arrogance, but out of hunger. You start seeking, not validation, but understanding. And slowly, you realize that every blasphemous thought is actually an invitation. An invitation to see what's beyond the script you inherited. That's where spirituality begins. Not in temples, not in sermons, not in rituals repeated by habit, but in the quiet discomfort of doubt. Because doubt, when faced honestly, isn't rebellion. It's awakening. It's the soul, remembering that truth was never meant to be memorized. It was meant to be discovered. And that discovery, the moment you stop reciting and start seeing, is the first breath of freedom. Religion promises certainty. Spirituality demands courage. Religion says, "Here is the truth, memorize it." Spirituality says, "Here is mystery, explore it." One hands you a finished map, the other hands you a compass and says, "Walk." Religion gives you answers, solid, simple, absolute. It tells you what to believe, what's forbidden, and who's right. It gives you comfort because it removes the burden of thinking for yourself. All you have to do is obey, and that's why it feels safe. Certainty is a warm blanket in a cold universe. It's predictable. It's structured. It spares you the anxiety of not knowing. But spirituality? It rips that blanket away. It throws you into the unknown and whispers, "Now, find your own way." It asks you to look beyond borrowed truths and walk into the fog without a guide. There's no manual, no guarantee, no promise that you'll find what you're searching for. And that's exactly what makes it powerful. Because courage isn't built through comfort. It's forged in the dark, when you're standing at the edge of what you've always believed, terrified to let go, but knowing you must. Religion protects the ego. It tells you that you're chosen, saved, part of something certain. Spirituality dissolves the ego. It shows you that you're everything and nothing at once. It doesn't promise safety. It demands honesty. It demands you face yourself, the fear, the doubt, the loneliness, and walk through them instead of hiding behind doctrine. And that's why spirituality can feel dangerous. Because it dismantles everything false before it reveals what's real. It's not rebellion, it's rebirth. Certainty is comforting, but it keeps you small. Freedom is terrifying, but it transforms you. The truth is, you can't have both. You can live safely inside someone else's answers, or you can risk everything to experience your own. And that moment, when fear turns into curiosity, is where transformation truly begins. The hidden mechanism of control. Fear, that's the secret ingredient. The invisible thread that's kept billions obedient for centuries. Religions throughout history have mastered it, refined it, turned it into an art form. Fear of hell, fear of sin, fear of exile, fear of thinking differently. Fear works because it's simple. It bypasses logic and goes straight to survival. It makes you flinch before you question. It keeps you kneeling when you should be standing. And so, entire empires of faith have been built not on love or wisdom, but on the threat of punishment for asking the wrong questions. Think about it. When someone says, "God loves you unconditionally, but disobey him and burn forever," that's not love. That's emotional blackmail dressed in sacred language. It keeps the flock in line while the shepherds build thrones from their devotion. The brilliance of fear-based control is that it hides itself as virtue. You're not told you're afraid, you're told you're faithful. You're not warned against curiosity, you're warned against evil. The chains are psychological, but they feel holy. And yet, there's a dangerous flaw in this design. Fear cannot coexist with awareness. The moment you start to look within, to ask, what if the divine isn't out there at all? The illusion starts to crumble. Because once you realize that divinity isn't a distant ruler watching from above, but a quiet presence living inside you, every external authority loses its power. No priest, no book, no institution can dictate your worth when you've touched your own. And that's the collapse the powerful fear most. The collapse of control. The moment the worshiper no longer needs an intermediary to find the sacred. Because when fear ends, freedom begins. And freedom, in the eyes of those who rule through fear, is the ultimate blasphemy, the great reversal. Spirituality flips the direction of faith. It takes everything religion taught you to look up toward and turns it inward. Religion says, worship what's above you. Spirituality says, remember what's within you. One builds an altar, the other becomes one. Religion divides. It separates believers from sinners, the saved from the damned, the chosen from the lost. It thrives on categories: who's pure, who's fallen, who belongs, who doesn't. But spirituality dissolves those walls. It sees every being, every breath, every star as a different face of the same consciousness. Where religion builds hierarchy, priests above followers, God above humanity, spirituality reveals symmetry. There is no ladder to climb, only a mirror to look into. The divine isn't at the top. It's reflected in everything that exists. And that changes everything. Because once you stop seeing yourself as separate from the source, guilt loses its grip. The fear of punishment fades. You don't need forgiveness to feel worthy. You don't need a middleman to feel sacred. You start to see that heaven was never a distant realm. It was a state of awareness hidden beneath layers of conditioning. This is the great reversal, the realization that what you were told to reach for has always been what you already are. That enlightenment isn't something to earn, but something to remember. When you start seeing through the illusion of separation, life stops feeling like a test and starts feeling like a reunion. You no longer beg to be saved. You recognize you were never lost. You don't need permission to feel divine. You don't need approval to feel whole. Because spirituality isn't about becoming something greater. It's about remembering that you already are. Science, atheism, and the new faith. Many who escape religion run straight into science. It feels like freedom at first, a clean break from superstition, a breath of clarity after years of blind belief. Equations replace scriptures. Laboratories replace temples. The white coat replaces the robe. And for a while it feels perfect. Science explains what religion couldn't. It gives us proof, precision, control. But eventually, something subtle happens. You start to notice that even this new freedom comes with invisible boundaries. When numbers become your gods, and logic becomes your priesthood, you've simply traded one church for another. The language changes, but the certainty remains. We have the answers, they say, and doubt becomes heresy once again, this time not against God, but against data. The rational mind can measure reality, but it cannot touch it. It can describe how the heart beats, but not why love hurts. It can study the brain's chemistry, but not the meaning behind consciousness. It can explain the mechanics of life, yet remain blind to the miracle of being alive. And that's where many begin to feel it, a quiet emptiness that facts can't fill. Because meaning isn't found under a microscope, it's felt in the silence behind your thoughts. It's what arises when you stop analyzing and start experiencing. This isn't superstition, it's awareness. A recognition that logic and wonder are not enemies, but partners. Science can show you the structure of the universe, but spirituality lets you feel its soul. When the two meet, something beautiful happens. Knowledge gains depth, and mystery gains direction. That's the bridge religion could never build, the one between understanding and meaning, between the known and the infinite. Because truth isn't found in belief or disbelief. It's found in awareness, the quiet space that holds them both. The collapse of separation. Every religion begins the same way, with one person's direct, intimate experience of the divine, a moment of connection so profound, so overwhelming, that words can barely contain it. But soon after, followers gather. They build systems, write rules, draw borders around the infinite. They codify it, control it, brand it, and eventually, they weaponize it. What began as connection becomes competition. My God, your God, our truth, your sin. What started as an attempt to touch the eternal devolves into a marketplace of salvation, each group selling the same sky through different windows. And every religion insists its window is the only one that truly lets the light in. Wars are fought over those windows. Families divide. Children grow up fearing the neighbors who pray differently, all because we've mistaken language for truth. But underneath all that noise, there's only one ocean wearing 1,000 names. The waves rise and fall, each believing they are separate, yet all made of the same water. You don't see the waves fighting over who owns the sea. Only humans do that. And this is the tragedy of separation. We forgot that the divine doesn't belong to anyone. It isn't Jewish or Muslim or Hindu or atheist. It simply is. It moves through everything. The breath you take, the tree outside your window, the thought crossing your mind right now. When you start to see through the illusion of division, something shifts. You realize the conflict was never between gods, but between egos. Between our desperate need to be right and our quiet longing to belong. Because when the walls of belief finally collapse, what's left isn't chaos, it's peace. The same peace the mystics spoke of long before religion claimed to own it, beyond belief. At the core of spirituality lies one radical idea. You are not a believer, you are the experience itself. You're not here to follow the light. You are the light, exploring itself through human form. And that realization changes everything. Belief is easy. It gives you something to cling to, a story to repeat when the world feels uncertain. It offers identity, comfort, and belonging. But experience, real, raw experience shatters all of that. Because when you truly encounter what's beyond belief, it doesn't fit into words. It doesn't fit into doctrine. It doesn't ask to be defended. It simply is. That's why spirituality can feel like death at first, the death of who you thought you were, the death of the roles, the labels, the borrowed truths that made you feel safe. It's terrifying to lose them. But only through that loss do you begin to see what's been hidden all along, the stillness beneath the noise, the awareness behind the identity. Religion teaches you to believe in something greater than yourself. Spirituality reveals that the greater was never separate from you to begin with. The seeker and the sought are the same. The prayer and the silence answering it, both are you. And when that truth finally settles in, belief becomes unnecessary. You stop chasing meaning and start embodying it. The distance between you and the divine disappears because there never was any. What's left after that inner death isn't emptiness, it's peace. A peace so vast it doesn't need a name, a symbol, or a god to validate it. It's the quiet recognition that everything you've ever searched for was searching through you, the infinite circle. Imagine a circle, inside it, religion, around it, spirituality, and beyond it, everything that still escapes human comprehension. This is the map of awareness. And somewhere within that circle is you. From birth, your circle is small, defined by the stories, fears, and beliefs you inherited. You grow up thinking that what's inside the line is truth, and everything outside it is danger. But over time, questions stretch those boundaries. Every moment of doubt, every flash of wonder, every honest look inward expands the perimeter of your circle. The goal isn't to escape it, it's to make it bigger. Because you can't live without boundaries, but you can choose how wide they reach. Each time you dare to question, to unlearn, to let go, your awareness grows. And as it expands, something beautiful happens. The lines that once separated you from others begin to fade. You stop seeing opposing beliefs as threats and start seeing them as reflections, different attempts to describe the same mystery. The distance between us and them starts to dissolve. You begin to realize that everything you once rejected, feared, or condemned is part of the same vast wholeness you came from. The more your circle expands, the less separation you perceive. The less separation you perceive, the closer you come to seeing the truth. The divine has never been elsewhere. It's been you all along. Because in the end, enlightenment isn't about reaching some final state. It's about infinite expansion, a circle growing wider with each breath of awareness. Religion builds walls, spirituality erases them. And consciousness? It has no edge at all. You were never outside the divine. You were always the line itself, the point where the finite meets the infinite, and remembers, it was never divided. So here's the truth most religions fear. The divine doesn't need defending, it only needs discovering. You don't have to bow to find it. You don't have to memorize someone else's version of it. You only have to look inward, into the stillness that's been waiting beneath all the noise. Because spirituality isn't rebellion, it's remembrance. It's remembering what you were before someone told you what to believe. It's the quiet realization that you were never separate from what you've been searching for. Maybe that's what this entire age is about. A quiet revolution, not of violence, but of awareness. A collective awakening from centuries of spiritual sleep. People are beginning to see that truth doesn't belong to temples, churches, or books. It belongs to consciousness itself. If you've ever felt that subtle stirring inside you, that unexplainable sense that there's more to this life than rules and fear, follow it. That's not doubt. That's your spirit remembering itself. And as you remember, others will too. That's how transformation spreads, not through argument, but through awareness. So if you value truth over tradition, clarity over comfort, stay curious. Keep thinking, keep feeling. Because awakening doesn't happen all at once. It happens one honest question at a time.